Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Artist Victoria Chick is back on Big Blend Radio today to talk about Surrealism, an art movement of the early 20th century. Has to do with your dreams, Nancy.
Uh-oh.
What's in your dreams? Have you ever painted your dreams, Nancy? I don't know if I want to know what's in your dreams.
No, I don't think I have.
You dream about
actually.
aliens, so that would be interesting.
Yeah, I do. I think, they're out there somewhere.
Wow. All right. So based in Silver City, New Mexico, Victoria is a contemporary figurative artist and early 19th, 20th century print collector. We'll have to find out if she's got some surrealistic prints. Wow, that's a mouthful. Her article on surrealism is featured in the November through January issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. You can check it there, or just go to blendradioandtv.com and type in Victoria or surrealism, and you'll see the article. You can also go to her website, which I totally encourage you to do. Go to victoriachick.com, and you can read her articles, of course, on blendradioandtv.com, as well as nationalparktraveling.com. Victoria, how are you?
I'm great, Lisa. Nice to talk to you today.
You too. So what's in your dreams that you would paint?
I stay away from that stuff.
Yeah, I know. But could you imagine what would come out of Nancy's brain? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, real life is exciting enough. So
I think I'd
stick with that.
I'd be painting wine bottles. Wine and chocolate. There'd be dancing wine bottles everywhere.
A moonscape with aliens on it would be interesting.
See, here we go. This is such an interesting topic. And it kind of reminds me, reading the article of the Impressionists who said, okay, that's it. We're going to have our own group. You guys want to stay in that way. We're moving on to a whole new way of painting, and we're breaking the rules, and we're doing this. And then, of course, that changed, right? But so this is kind of the same thing, right, with surrealism, where some artists went, that's it, we're moving on, and we're painting our dreams instead of reality.
Well, it was, and surrealism grew out of Dadaism, Dadaism, which came before it by a few years. It kind of started. You can't understand surrealism really without saying a little bit about Dada artists, because they were coming out in a time period that overlapped the First World War and kind of went into about the 1920s and somewhere around there, and they were disillusioned. They were nihilists. They were affected by all the excesses that were going on in Germany at the time. It was a German movement, and their goal was to annoy people and to try to shake them up. And they did this. They did this by various means. They did photo montage. They did collage. They did that was just visual artists. But they also did sculpture. One of the most famous or notorious sculptures is a urinal
I'm looking at it.
Placed on a pedestal as a sculpture. Now, kind of everybody's kind of familiar with that one.
It's called the Fountain.
But, yes, but they were trying to be aggressively annoying, and their goal in that was to make people see the ridiculousness of war and the ridiculousness of things that were going on. It was a concept that was totally lacking in any effect that they really wanted. So, I mean, what they didn't get people to react the way they really wanted to. People mostly laughed at it or were disgusted by it. We look at it now and it's humor. We look at it now and it's humorous, but at the time, they were coming out of a tradition that was, like you say, it was Impressionist art. It was some Expressionist art had been done, and of course, but probably the most of the people didn't at that time weren't really wild about those two art movements. They were still stuck mentally in a more classical appreciation of art.
You know, it's interesting. It's like
this
music
stuff was really, this stuff was really radical and terribly offensive to people. So the person that is the most important in the Surrealist movement was a guy named Andre Breton, who had been a Dada person, and he was really more of a writer than a visual artist. And he wrote a manifesto outlining what he thought Surrealism should be and why it was important. I don't know whether it was, at that time, I don't know whether it was accepted any better than the Dada artists had been accepted, but at least it was more tangible to viewers. And the reason for that is because the Dada artists did this meticulous kind of painting. It was kind of very precise edges, objects that people could recognize. What made it different was that the objects were placed next to other objects where they really didn't have a relationship in real life. So everything was kind of dreamlike. Like if you think about the most realistic dream you ever had, where like stairways are going up to nothing, or
right.
You've got things floating in the air, or people are
aliens
doing strange things. Anyway, where the setting, there's objects in, like a person standing in midair, for instance, where the surroundings are illogical. And so his idea was that if you go back to dreams, you always see your dreams very clearly, but they may be fragmented, so they don't tell a linear story necessarily. And he felt that if you're painting or you're writing or you're making music from things that come out of your dreams, that you're being more creative. You're reaching into your subconscious, and that's where your creativity lies. And so that was really the main thrust of Surrealism, was tapping creativity. And I think they were influenced. Yeah, so go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's really interesting because you think about like the beatnik era, and then you think about how many people went and used Surrealism, like in the 60s, in the 70s, even the 40s and 50s. Some musicians, poets, artists went into Surrealism and kind of brought it back. And I wonder if it's because of, when you were talking about the Dadaism, I have to do this. Can't help it.
I keep thinking of Barbara Ann when I say that.
Oh, right. There you go.
It's the same.
Yeah, there you go. But when you think about it, it's like a cycle has rotated. And then like in the 80s when punk music came out, and then even rap music, it was like, hey, we're waking you up, shaking you up. And actually like a little bit of both. And I love my punk music. There's just some rebellious spirit to it that you just kind of like, hey, and it really annoyed a lot of people, and a lot of people really loved it. So it kind of reminds me of some of the things that have happened in music, poetry, and just in the written word. So it's kind of interesting how Surrealism and Dada, I just want to keep saying that, how it merged into these other outlets.
Right. Right, and you see, you do see it cropping out, the forms of it, cropping out at various times in history as we come forward. We might be in a state like that right now and don't realize it. We see it being the Dada portion. We see that kind of being acted out in politically right now, but we don't see it so much yet in music and art and literature. So we just may be on the cusp of something, then that will happen. Usually you see it in art before it actually is, you're aware of it. But with social media, things happen so fast that that may be going in reverse now.
This is interesting. Now, what about, since they're kind of going through a dream, so they're like, you're not pre-planning your art. Whereas an artist, I've watched you talk about composition. We've done videos with you where you talk about how you plan your paintings, you sketch.
Well, one of the things that that they used as a tool was automatism. And that would, one example of that from a visual standpoint would be like drawing simultaneously with both hands. And you can't totally control it. You don't know what's happening. You just sort of try to black your mind out and just kind of let the drawing tool do whatever it wants to do. You're sort of guiding it, but not as much as you would be if you were trying to represent something that you're looking at realistically.
Okay, but what about if they meditated? Like, would they meditate and then do whatever they're if you do visualization?
I'm sure there were lots of different ways of working, and that might have been one. You don't have a lot of writings by the individual artists.
Man, I would have loved to have gone back.
You have kind of like the guy who's like Breton, who was speaking for everybody, and then people read his manifesto. Artists read his manifesto and say that struck a nerve for them, and so they started trying to tap their subconscious more.
That's why they drink red wine when they paint.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I'm not sure what the drink of choice was for the surrealist.
Yeah,
absinthe.
Yeah, maybe. It just strikes me as odd from a standpoint of back then. It seems like more art for art's sake, and as we come forward through the centuries, actually, it becomes marketing and selling art, and so you're compromised to some degree as to how you're going to paint and what you're going to paint to suit a market for it. You know what I
mean? Yeah. I think if you're dealing with, I'll call it high-end art, which is generally speaking is art that most people don't understand. It's like more like intellectual, but those people did okay, even coming forward, because they might say it's art for art's sake, and but the average viewer, maybe the most artists, who have to think about, if they don't have another job, how their work is going to sell, and
exactly.
I mean, there may be a trade-off people make. So there were always a smallish group of people who were artists who did this kind of I'll say surrealist work. Most of it. Well, the most successful person that almost everybody knows is Salvador Dali, who was a surrealist, and all the other surrealists couldn't stand him because he was successful, and he was very much a self-promoter, and he was making money because he was good at self-promotion. Probably, So the other artists whose work are now in galleries and museums, and where their work is on calendars, and you see it frequently reproduced. They didn't enjoy the benefits of sales while they were alive, particularly.
I want to go to his museum, Salvador Dali Museum, when we get to Florida on our tour, Nancy. And I've always wanted to go there. And I remember having a lot of the prints, just as teenager on up, because I always thought he was trippy. I'm like, what is going on with him? I never even realized it was surrealism or anything. And through different moves and travels, as you know about us, Victoria, Nancy just turned around and said, "You will get rid of this."
You're not collecting anything.
Cheap prints, and it just freaked her out. That there's a few things in life that I've brought back and from places, and that remember the little Boogaloo man?
Oh no.
We've talked about the mask that she swears brings
Ugly.
bad juju.
Got
and
bright red eyes. It's just horrible.
No, she's like, I got it from the Bahamas, and she was like, you will, But anyway, Salvador Dali to me is just, he's really he's a trip, because look at his mustache and the things though, like you've got elephants going off and going through weird things, watches melting, all of that crazy stuff.
Right. He's bigger than
But
life.
he also didn't seem like, some of the quotes in his life didn't seem like he wanted to tell people it came from dreams. It's like, that's my my imagination is my secret.
Right.
That's that.
Right.
What he's doing. He's trying to be secretive.
Yeah. Well, a lot of artists, don't want to. They think they have secrets about their work, and they don't. Some artists are not very forthcoming about what inspires them. Or it's like asking a writer, how do you get your plots? I mean, writers hate being asked stuff like that, or maybe musicians do too. How do you choose which chords to play or whatever? It's just a dumb question, and how do they don't want to answer that. I don't think.
Yeah.
So
well, no, because it's their unique, their secret process, and
a lot of times different. A lot of times people don't really think about where stuff comes from, especially the surrealists, because if they're drawing on their subconscious, they're doing it. Maybe be doing it subconsciously. So,
well, they could just say, "I don't remember."
They're not sure where it came from. Why? I mean, you would probably have had dreams. Like I've had dreams, and some image will pop into your dream, and or somebody you haven't thought about you for 25 years, and they're in your dream. Who knows why?
It's a message, Victoria.
Yeah,
I dream about beluga whales all the time. Is that weird that I dream about beluga whales all the time? I do have a thing about beluga whales, but I do want to say this about Salvador Dali. I would like someone to make a movie on his life.
Well, I'm sure
with
someone has.
Robert Downey Jr. playing Dali, because they look so alike in a weird way. And I'm just saying that's my comment of the day, my main comment amongst others. That's my main comment of the day.
They'll have to work on a mustache.
Because that mustache is crazy. See, that's part of it.
That's the art form. He's bigger than life. He made himself a persona that was bigger than life, where a lot of artists are very reclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So, he comes along and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be bigger than life, and I'm going to do it my way. And it worked because he pushed himself forward and marketed to a certain extent.
And I think he put himself in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I mean,
he talks about how great he is always, or has in the past, and and people believe it. So, and he is very good. I mean, he's a good artist.
He is a good artist. I think so.
Yeah.
And I think he put himself in his own paintings, and he changed his hair color a lot. I think he did that. He was one of those who did that. This has become a new thing. I think one day we should do a whole feature on artists who put themselves in their own paintings or their own work.
Okay.
It could be on anything, because it seems that they do. There's this there's
a lot of would-be Alfred Hitchcocks out there in the art world.
We could put him in there too.
That's what we call it, the Alfred Hitchcock
syndrome.
Of art.
The syndrome.
The syndrome.
It's a syndrome. Yeah, it's a syndrome. It's like this is what I've got to do. It's interesting, but what is also interesting is some of the top, like what they're not necessarily pretty. It doesn't seem like people are having happy dreams.
Well, no. A lot of these dreams, you're right. You go back and you think these dreams are unhappy, they're isolated, they're lonely, they're tortured, whatever. They're not. You're right. They're not happy pictures, and they require thought to appreciate them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you can ask yourself, I wonder what he ate or drank before he painted that.
Yeah. I wish we could go and sit with all of them and talk. So you've got, I know you've got Giorgio de Chirico. Chirico.
Chirico, right?
He's very angular in his art. He doesn't seem, he has some rounded things, but it's like Dali's, everything's kind of rounded, curvy. His is boxy.
Well, most of the pictures that you see in art books are from a certain period. So like Dali changed as he got older, and he did a lot of religious paintings as he got older, which were rather surreal, and but you don't see the rounded forms in them that you do in the earlier ones. De Chirico seemed for a period of time he did all his paintings like it was very late afternoon, very late. The shadows, really long shadows in kind of isolated urban settings, with maybe like one figure in there or a couple other objects that were, non-related in the picture. And his are very mysterious to me.
It's interesting. It's when you look at,
it's almost like somebody would sit there as they're composing or making this painting, and kind of the thought process could be, not saying it was, but could be, I think I'll just do this, that'll confuse them, as if they could come back and watch somebody looking at their painting 100 years later and go, gotcha. It's like, like it's I'm playing with the viewer kind of thing.
Yeah. And you've got Max Ernst.
Yeah.
He's also, Max is, he's a little, you're right. It is that era. The box.
Yeah, it was, and they were working, from the mid-20s, probably up to the Second World War was primarily when most of this was done. So a couple of them worked longer than that. There were still a few artists that were calling themselves surrealists in the 1950s, and then it seemed to lose favor. Then abstract expressionism kind of came in, and there was also, after abstract expressionism, then you had pop art, op art, and fantasy art kind of was another small genre of art that was being done and still being done. And this is where you come in, Nancy, because we got space aliens, but you also had wild, figures, unicorns, and animals were composed of different parts and so forth. So surrealism did have a lasting effect, I think. Whether people would call themselves surrealists, I know when I look at my painting, I see that I'm kind of surrealist because since I'm not hard edge. I have some things that are juxtapositions. The juxtapositions are odd sometimes, but
you do have one.
But my brushwork's more expressive.
Yes, but you do have the egg beater with the cat.
Yeah. That's an example.
Yeah, and that's the first thing I thought of when I was reading the article. I'm like, oh, it's the egg beater.
Yeah, but this is what's interesting, because when you look at what you do as a contemporary figurative artist, you're always capturing that little moment, that maneuver, that it's just that little part of what makes the big moment. It's like the beginning of take a step. The step is a big movement, but there's that beginning where you're capturing almost like the brain process, the brain to body process, or the body to brain to body. Does that even make sense? But anyway, tripping out. But you're capturing that moment of when things start to change or an action is about to be taken. And so in that way, isn't that in an interesting way, kind of like that's interesting space? I don't know how to explain it, but it kind of goes with the dream automative thingy where, there's like, this is what happens, but how do you capture that little space of movement, that thought pattern, that decision to make this happen. Yeah, that was good, Nancy. Look at that.
I'm just looking at her. I'm like, what are you drinking?
You said aliens. You started with the alien thing, and I go weird.
One thing that I've noticed about a lot of surrealist art, painting-wise, is that there's a suspension of time in it. Everything, things are very precise. They're placed in positions often that you wouldn't see them in real life, and there's a stillness to them. Like there's no time. They're just there for you to consider. And I'm thinking of De Chirico especially. Not every surrealist is like that, but I think of many of Dali's paintings as being like that.
Yeah, and because
there were also some surrealists that just did kind of organic shapes, like
that's
and they're
what I
almost,
think I'm talking about.
Yeah. Surrealism wasn't a one-size-fits-all kind of style.
I think that's its point. Because everyone's subconscious is different. You're not premeditating this.
Right.
And then those object part that you were talking about, I think that started the 80s fashion trends. Remember people with their shirts and the objects all over them and everything? It was like, where did that come from? Like, what was that?
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like, here's multiple colors. We have oranges and triangles and circles. And
I've always been dazzled by the surfer shorts.
Well, what about the parachute pants?
And I have bad dreams about that. So
that's very British.
And listen, no white belts ever. That should be taken off the market. So what is it about white belts? Who started that?
Pat Boone.
Yeah, well, he was wrong.
No, and then later he went to black leather and he tried to be a rock and roll person.
I remember that.
But when he started, it was like white penny loafers, white slacks, white belt,
no white
shirt.
No, especially with jeans. Don't do that.
He did. He was.
Wow. Okay, onto the fashion side of surrealism. But it did. I think a lot of things end up in textile art. I really do. I see these things and I go, whoever's doing the textile art had to have been inspired by something like certain movements.
Oh yeah,
and shape, and color.
Yeah,
because it's very simplistic for a reason.
This is a trip. Do you have any surrealistic prints in your collection since you do 19th, 20th century prints?
I don't, mainly because I collect mostly American prints, and surrealism was more of a European art movement.
Okay.
So,
and maybe that's why there's more nudes in there, because Americans haven't done that much on the nudie scene versus the Europeans. The Europeans don't mind about nudies, and you know what I mean? Americans, took a while.
Well, don't forget, we started as Puritans.
I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay, sorry.
Just remember, we started out as Puritans.
Okay, I'm just saying. But yes, there's body parts in these. That's all I'm saying. Surrealism is a trippy thing, It really is. It's just
so the big thing. So you paint something and somebody gets offended by it, and you're like, "I'm sorry, I just paint what's in my dreams. What are you gonna do about that?"
So maybe the fantasy came out of, we don't want the.
So I'll just say I dreamt it.
I want to have the nice fantasy dream, like where I'm on a unicorn, and
right,
riding a unicorn through a forest, and fairies come out and hang with me, and I love fairy art. Sorry, I think it's cool. But anyway, I prefer that. I like it. Okay, so everybody, again, Victoria's article on surrealism is on blendradioandtv.com. So just type in surrealism, or you can also see it in the November through January issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. Victoria, we have music for you. And it's from Europe.
What is it this time?
It's Europe. It's from Europe.
Okay.
And it's called Your Dreams. Go figure, because,
Okay.
There's freedom in dreaming. There's freedom there. And I think that's part of this whole part of surrealism is that there's no censoring in dreaming. That's the only thing, you can censor your thoughts because we change our thoughts. Whatever we do, we can say, well, I'm not going to think that, not going to do that. But your dreams, you cannot stop your dreams. So if you want to
not easily, that's for sure. But I'm going to clear my mind and listen to this music and go with the flow.
Did I freak you out? I'm sorry.
No.
This is good music, though. Everybody, this is from John Magnusson. He's over in Sweden, and you can go to his website, johnmagnusson.se, and that's Magnusson. It's John, Jon, so johnmagnusson.se. He's on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, everywhere. And this is Your Dreams. It's from his latest EP, Acoustic Dreams. Actually, it was also on his first EP, Psalms for Sinners. And now this is the acoustic version. He's cool. I love John. So here it is. Your Dreams. Don't forget, keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com. Our schedule's up there. And go visit Victoria's website, victoriachick.com. Thanks so much, Victoria.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye, Nancy.
Bye.
Never be defeated, no matter how bad you're treated. Even though they try to strike you down, your dignity and honesty, it's something that they will never find. And at night when you're sleeping, you can feel them creeping, trying step by step to break you down. So hold on to your dreams and keep them, hiding them inside. Cause in your dreams you can go so far away. In your thoughts you can go so far away. Your hunger can take you so far away, away. They will wake after twilight with a gun under the limelight and will force you on your knees and to the ground. But your dignity and honesty, it's something that they will never find. And even though they decided to repress you to be blinded, and it took away your one last smile, you hold on to your dreams and you keep them, hiding them inside. Cause in your dreams you can go so far away. In your thoughts you can go so far away. Your hunger can take you so far away, away. Everything is naked, you have been inside your haven. You have seen through all their stories. But your freedom and your happiness were something you deserted. It can never be inverted. But in your dreams you can go so far away. In your thoughts you can go so far away. Your hunger can take you so far away, away. Cause in your dreams you can go so far